Chase points are some of the best credit card points in the world. There are so many good redemptions with them, and it's so easy to get good value. So how can you earn a ton of them? That's what we're going to talk about today. My name is Shaun, and I'm here with my co-host.
Hi everyone, I'm Sherwin, here the second half of the Credit Card BS podcast. So today's episode, how to accumulate a ton of Chase points. Before we get into that, we should start with why we recommend that people start with Chase. I think there are two main reasons. One is the Chase 524 rule. Shaun, why don't you describe what that rule is and how it affects our strategy?
So for those of you that don't know, the Chase 524 rule essentially states this. If you have opened 5 or more personal credit card accounts which are reporting to your credit agencies, you cannot get approved for another Chase card. So it could be 5 cards from any bank. It doesn't have to be Chase. And what matters is whether or not they are reporting to your personal credit bureau. Basically, what does Chase see? Does Chase see that you've opened 5 cards in the past 24 months or not? And if you're above that, you're most likely not going to be able to get any Chase cards, which means there's an opportunity cost because you can get other cards later, but you can't really get Chase cards later because once you've opened too many, you're locked out.
Yes, that's a very good point. That's why we recommend people start with Chase, because if you do Chase first, then you get to 524, then you can go wild with the other issuers that don't have this rule. But if you kind of max out all your slots from other issuers, then you kind of have to, chill out from credit card applications for a whole 2 years before you can even get a chance to apply for more Chase cards. So just strategically, it makes most sense to start with them. The other thing I would say generally is that for people new to this game, say Chase points are easier to understand and easier to use for general travel. That's not to say it isn't also great for advanced users. Like Shaun and I have been in this game for a while now, but we still both love our Chase points. But, for someone who is new to the game, you'll see why they're pretty easy to use. It's not like you have to, do hardcore research on a bunch of crazy redemptions to be able to get value out of them. So let's talk about the value of Chase points. So there's one way to get elevated value from your Chase points using the travel portal. Shaun, do you kind of want to quickly explain why that is and why it's not our preferred strategy?
Yeah, so if you have a Chase Sapphire Reserve, you can redeem your Chase points on the portal at 1.5 cents each. We don't really like this. Oh, and if it's a Sapphire Preferred, you could do 1.25 cents. We don't love this because, one, we don't like to redeem travel on a portal. It just creates a lot of issues and headaches. And then also, you can get better value than that, just flat out. Like, it's pretty easy to get good value with the transfer partners with Chase.
Yeah, so transfer partners are basically the opportunity for you to turn one Chase point into one airline mile or one hotel point that they have. So like our favorite is World of Hyatt, where you can get great value, often 2 or more cents per point, both on the lower end hotels, but also on the higher end luxury hotels. So let's now talk about the various cards that can earn you Chase Ultimate Rewards points. Now, the Chase 524 rule we talked about actually does apply to basically all the Chase cards, including their co-branded ones. But today, we're just going to focus on the Ultimate Rewards points earning cards, okay? So on the personal side, you have the Chase Freedom cards, the Freedom Flex and the Freedom Unlimited. Both of these cards earn 3x on dining, but the difference is that on the Freedom Unlimited, you earn 1.5x on everything. And for the Freedom Flex, you earn 5x points on certain categories that they announce every quarter, up to $1,500 per quarter of spend. Now, Freedom Unlimited is a popular choice as a cash-all card, like a typical workhorse card, because it just earns 1.5x back on everything instead of 1x like on most of the other cards. Shaun, thoughts on using, people using this as your primary workhorse card if they're trying to earn a lot of Chase points?
I mean, it's obviously the best, one of the best picks if you're trying to earn a lot of Chase points. Personally, I would pick a different catch-all card, such as like the Venture X or City Double Cash, transferring, of course, to City points, because you can, I'd rather have 2x points of a different currency than 1.5x Chase, even though I do prefer Chase points. However, if you're trying to earn Chase points specifically, it's pretty much the best pick within the ecosystem.
Yes, that's a very good point. I would also like to add the Chase Freedom cards are marketed as cashback, but they're actually earning Ultimate Rewards points that themselves cannot be transferred out to partners, but you can combine them later down the road when you get a Sapphire card, for example, to unlock the transfer partners. So it's great to use them all in conjunction as an ecosystem. So Shaun, do you want to quickly talk about the Sapphire cards, Sapphire Preferred, Sapphire Reserve?
Yeah, so the Chase Sapphire Preferred is a $95 annual fee card. It's the base tier card that unlocks transfers out to the partners. So I believe it's the multipliers are pretty low. So it's like 2x on dining, 2x on travel, right? I don't even think it's 3x on travel.
Dining.
Am I right on that?
3x on dining.
3x on dining, 2x on travel, right?
Yes.
Which is very uncompetitive for a travel card. And then the Sapphire Reserve has 3x at dining and then 3x at travel, which I mean, sure is a competitive multiplier, but it's a $550 annual fee card. So, obviously there's other credits to offset that, but it's just not the most impressive multipliers there. I think what gets more interesting as well is when you start to get into the business cards. So there's also, beyond just the personal ultimate reward earning cards, Chase has a series of Inc. business cards. Now, business cards, remember that you can get one. You don't need like some super established LLC or corporation. Anyone doing anything outside of employment to earn extra income is a business. You qualify for a business card under sole proprietorship, so you can get these. And they do not report to your personal credit report. And so that means they don't affect 524. Yet they are, of course, affected by 524. So if you're over 524, you cannot get one of the cards. So these cards in this series is the Inc. Unlimited, the Inc. Cash, and the Inc. Preferred. The Inc. Preferred being kind of the business duo to the Sapphire Preferred. It's a $95 annual fee card, but with 3x on travel. I don't think it has 3x in dining, but it does give you that 3x in travel, which the Sapphire Preferred does not have. And then Sherwin, do you want to talk about the Inc. Unlimited and the Inc. Cash? Because particularly the Inc. Cash has a good multiplier.
Yes, I will talk about them in a sec, but I just want to remind everyone that Inc. Preferred is another option to unlock transfer partners if you don't have the Sapphire cards. That's the one I personally use. So the Inc. Unlimited is just a card that earns 1.5x on everything, kind of similar to the Freedom Unlimited. But since I actually prefer this one because since it's the business card, not only does it have a much larger sign-up bonus, but it doesn't add to your 524 status. So yeah, you could be like 424 and get like 3 Chase Inc. cards and still be at 424 essentially. And that's just how their algorithm works. Like it does actually take into account their own business cards when they calculate 524. So that's kind of the strategy here. The Inc. Cash is actually a really good card in that it earns 5x on office supply stores. And you're like, oh, who cares about office supply stores? Why would that be lucrative for me? 5x at office supply stores. So Shaun, well, why do we care about office supply stores?
So, I mean, I don't personally do this, but I do know people that do this quite heavily. Office supply stores sell gift cards like MasterCard and Visa gift cards. And oftentimes they have, there's an activation fee on those, but oftentimes there's promotions where that is waived. And so you go to an office supply store, let's say you spend, I don't know, $5,000 on Visa gift cards or MasterCard gift cards. That's 5x, 25,000 ultimate reward points. And then presumably you're somehow turning that $5,000 worth of Visa gift cards back into some cash equivalent. Now, again, I don't do this personally. Like, I'm not even just saying that because this is on YouTube. I actually don't. But I do know people that go in and they spend like $5,000 a day on gift cards. And I will say, they're making quite a lot of ultimate reward points from it. So whether that's something that interests you is totally up to you. And it's not a risk-free endeavor, but it is potentially very profitable for those that do it. But it's you do enter a gray area there for sure.
Yeah, I personally don't do the Visa gift card thing, even though I know it could be potentially lucrative. What I do sometimes do is go there and buy like Amazon gift cards that I use to reload my balance. So then essentially I'm earning 5x points on all my Amazon purchases. I do find that pretty useful. So anyway, talk about all these Freedom, Sapphire, Inc. cards. Are there other things to know? So the one thing to know is that there is what's called a one Sapphire rule. So at any given time, you can only have a Sapphire Preferred or a Sapphire Reserve. You cannot have both. You can downgrade and upgrade between the two, but technically you're not supposed to be able to hold both at the same time. So you kind of have to pick one if you're deciding between the two. As Shaun mentioned, the Sapphire Reserve is the more expensive one. $550 annual fee, very easy to use 300 travel credit, but even taking that off, you're still at a $250 effective annual fee. There are some other miscellaneous credits, but you have to kind of see, does that $250 make more sense to you than the like $95 Sapphire Preferred. And because both of them have the same one-to-one transfer ratios to the travel partners, the only difference is that Sapphire Reserve gives you more value when you redeem through the portal. We already explained why we don't like to redeem through the portal. So that's why between the two, I think the daylight is actually not that significant to warrant the increased Sapphire Reserve fee. Unless some had a huge bonus at the time you were signing up or something. Shaun, what do you think?
No, I totally agree with that. I think it's really depending on the bonus at the time, as with most things. And unless you are going to have some specific use case for the Sapphire Reserve, the Sapphire Preferred or the Ink Preferred often makes a lot more sense. I think it's also important. We've talked a lot about like all these cards and, the multipliers and everything. I think I want to quickly discuss like a very concrete, very simple, easy to follow strategy where our viewers, if they want to do something that's not a ton of maintenance, but could still earn a ton of chase points without insane spend, how they could do this. So this is what I would personally advise. If you're not manufactured spending, but you do have a decent amount of monthly spend, maybe you could spend about 6,000 to 8,000 every 3 months. That figure is very important. What I would do is one of you, assuming in a 2-player setup, player 1 opens something like the Ink Preferred, gets 100,000 points, then refers player 2 to one of the Ink cards, whether cash, preferred, unlimited, whatever. And then player 2, after reaching that second bonus, refers player 1 to another Ink card, player 1 refers player 2 to another Ink card, rinse and repeat, usually waiting about at least 3 months within one individual getting a second Ink card. So if I get an Ink card, I want to wait another 3 months before I get my second Ink card. But of course, the player 2 is separate from that. If you do this, remember that Ink referrals are 40,000 points apiece, and the sign-up bonus tends to minimum be 75,000 points apiece. So you're racking up well over 100,000 chase points per application approval. And remember that besides the Ink Preferred, there's no annual fees, and you're not affecting your 524 status. And so let's say each player gets 1 Ink every 3 months. So that's 400,000 points at least per player per year. That's 800K chase points per year. That's quite a bit. That's quite a lot. You'd have to spend a lot of money on not doing sign-up bonuses to get close to that.
Yeah, I really like this point that Shaun points out of the ink bonuses, especially being lucrative. One thing people may not know is that the if you look at the language of the ink offers out there, it actually does not preclude you from getting an ink based on how many inks you've already have, or like whether you already have or had that card. For example, the Freedom cards has like a 24-month clock. The Sapphire cards have a 48-month clock. So once you get a Sapphire bonus, you have to wait 48 months before you can get another one. I generally don't see these restrictions on the ink card. So potentially you could be getting a bunch of bonus. And it's crazy like how high these bonuses are. And the referral strategy really, really pays off. That Shaun mentioned. Keep in mind, referral bonuses themselves are taxed as income, but the sign-up bonuses themselves are not.
And for that first ink card that you get when your player 2 doesn't have one, be sure to check out the referral links in the description below because it helps us out a lot. And for your first one, before you enter that referral loop strategy, because you got to enter somehow.
Yes, absolutely. So before we wrap up, Shaun, I'm curious, like, what your personal, chase strategy is like. What cards have you opened in what order, or like what's your go-to to earning a bunch of chase points?
I mean, for me, it's a little weird. So I'm like way past 524 right now. I'm kind of in the garden. I'm about a year away from being in the vicinity to get chase cards again. When I was doing it though, Ink Preferred was my first pick because I didn't have a Sapphire. I never actually opened a Sapphire. So I wanted the ability to transfer points out. That was like hands down most important for me. Because like if I go for an ink cash or something, it's like, yeah, I got all these points. But like if there's a redemption I want, I just can't use them. So got to get the Ink Preferred first, at least for me. And then I went for an ink cash after that. And then if I hadn't gone beyond 524, I would have just kept getting ink cards every couple months, probably. Just the bonuses are so good. As someone who's like making content in the space, for me, my like main chase earning strategy has probably been the referral bonuses. That's actually produced a decent amount because 40K a referral, that adds up. Even a couple referrals makes a huge difference. My player 2 though, she is not beyond 524, So every couple months, I have been having her get an ink card. And so that's kind of kept our pool of Chase points still, pumping in, still having a good amount. How about for you?
Yeah, I mean, I see YouTubers all the time promote, the Chase Trifecta, get the Chase Trifecta, get the Freedom Flex, Freedom Unlimited, the Sapphire, and I've not followed any of that advice because I think my modified Quadfecta setup is better. So basically, how I run it is I got a Freedom Flex as like my first Chase card, which is solid because you get the 5x rotating categories as well as the 3x on dining. So I do use that for dining, and then I got the Ink Unlimited, Ink Cash, and Ink Preferred in succession. And what was great about doing that was the bonuses were like a lot higher than the Freedom and Sapphire cards. And also they did not add at all to my 524 score. And also, for example, using the Ink Unlimited is great because it gives me the 1.5x. So I've not found the need to open the Freedom Unlimited, which has a smaller bonus and adds to the 524 score. And then obviously Ink Preferred I use for the travel category as well as the ability to transfer points out. Oh yeah, by the way, I do want to clarify that Ink Preferred is not to be confused with the other product, Ink Premier, which is a newer card that Chase released, where those points are literally only cashback and can't be combined or transferred out like the rest of the cards we're talking about. So we're not talking at all about Ink Premier. We're talking about the Ink Preferred. Okay, so yeah, that's my modified Quadfecta strategy. It consists only of one personal card and 3 ink cards. And I think, it covers literally every multiplier. Like nothing's missing, like 3x dining for Freedom Flex, 1.5 Ink Unlimited, the Ink Cash multipliers, and then travel. I just do the Ink Preferred 3x, which is actually better than the 2x from the Sapphire Preferred. So that's kind of how I played the game. Not necessarily saying this is how everyone should do it, but I think it at least illustrates that you should really do not ignore the business cards if you're trying to earn a lot of Chase points.
Totally agree. I think so many people are like, oh, but do I really run a business? If you do anything to make money outside of direct employment, and assuming you have a legal status in the US that allows you to be trying to earn a profit, that's a business. That qualifies automatically. You apply sole proprietorship. You can get approved for it. If you apply for a Freedom Unlimited, you're kind of just lighting money on fire because you're wasting a 524 slot and you're not getting the bonus on the Ink Unlimited, which is astronomically better than the Freedom Unlimited. There's no reason really to get a Freedom Unlimited. I know there's like, oh, they get a little better multipliers than the Ink Unlimited. Get the Ink Unlimited. The bonus is so much better. You'll have to spend like tens of thousands of dollars on the Freedom Unlimited to make a difference. So totally agree. Business cards are where the money is at.
Yes, I think that's a very good point. Okay, is there anything else you wanted to add, Shaun, before we wrapped up for the day?
I think that's pretty much it. I think really just focus on the sign-up bonuses, focus on the inks. That's where the money's at if you want to earn a ton of Chase points. If you follow that strategy, it's not a complicated strategy. Doesn't really give you a bunch of velocity on your credit report. You're earning a ton of Chase points.
Oh, I do want to add one thing,
Nice.
though. So when people start having a lot of Chase accounts and you start having a high credit limit, it may be harder to get approved. And there are some steps you can take. And I think that's kind of important to touch upon, especially, if people are trying to go for a bunch of inks or a bunch of Chase cards to maximize the number of points. So, Shaun, do you want to quickly just chat about that kind of strategy?
Yeah, I mean, the main strategy is there's a couple things you could do. So one is once you start opening a lot of Chase accounts, you can just start closing them. Because they're business cards, it doesn't hurt your credit score. So just remember though, like you don't want to close a card within a year of opening. That's bad, but beyond that, it's fine. Another strategy is if you do want to keep the account open, just lower the credit line. Because if you lower the credit line, Chase sees across all your accounts with them that you don't have this massive credit line. You're not as much of a risk. So they're more willing to extend more credit to you. If you have this giant, if I have a $50,000 credit line across Chase, but I list like my income is $40,000, they're going, that's a little suspect. We're taking on a lot of risk with this guy who's not claiming to have that big of an income proportional to his credit line. So yeah, lowering limits and closing accounts is probably going to be your best strategy.
Great. And yeah, my understanding is that Chase is less concerned about the number of accounts you have with them and more concerned with the total credit line exposure you have across. If your goal is not, to have massive credit lines, but rather to just get more cards, get more points, it does make sense to lower those credit limits to increase your approval odds. Generally, the guideline is they won't approve you for, a total of more than 50% of the income that you report. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so that covers it pretty well. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please consider subscribing to our channel and giving this video a like. Also, if you're interested in any of the cards we talked about today, especially the Chase Ink cards, or any card for that matter, please consider using one of our referral links down in the description below. It greatly helps support the channel. And Shaun, why don't you plug our Discord?
So if you want to learn even more about this game, you want to connect with an elite group of credit card enthusiasts and award travel experts, join the 100% free traveling Discord at the link in the description or at the pinned comment down below. You'll learn a ton, I promise. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next week.